So happy to welcome you here this morning, like new breakfast TV style thing. Um, anyway, my name's Vicky. I am the Patient and Community Engagement Lead at Women's College Hospital just down the road. I'm also a person with lived experience in the CPCC, so I had childhood leukemia. Oh, sorry, ACCESS, thank you. Yeah, I actually really like that name, so I will use it more. Yeah, I had leukemia when I was 8 years old, so I have now been cancer-free for 28 years. I have to calculate that sometimes. Thank you. And I'm one of the co-leads of Theme 7, which is psychosocial and survivorship. So it's been a pleasure to work with everybody there. So I'm going to turn it over to Jacob first, just to do a brief introduction to himself.
Hello, my name is Jacob. I am a two-time cancer survivor of brain cancer and kidney cancer, and I have been cancer-free for 15 years now.
Antoine?
Hello, I'm Antoine. I know very little about childhood cancer. I'm a participatory physician, a participatory researcher, and a participatory musician. So everything I do in life is just a pretext to meet interesting people like Jacob.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I've got a few sets of questions which I've prepared, and then we're hoping to spend about 10 minutes for your questions at the end. So please do think about what you would like to ask our panelists, I guess, today. So Jacob, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned through your experience of pediatric cancer?
That goes a long way back, but most of the things I've learned is that going through pediatric cancer is not easy. It takes a lot of strength, but not the physical strength you think. It's more mental strength, because if being in a hospital room, it may not affect you physically, but it affects you mentally. So you think like, oh, why am I here? I don't like this. Like, I should just kind of let myself go, which is not the mentality you want.
Yeah, I know as well, it's really difficult to spend that much time in hospital. And, you know, what did you do during that time to try and, you know, cope with that and deal with your time in hospital and all the procedures as well?
Most of the things I did was, I think what kept my mind away is having people come visit, because that always takes out the mentality. So like that, just having the entertainment of the facilities at CHIO, for example, who no longer works there, but the therapeutic clown, her name was Molly. She would always come to my room, entertain me, keep my spirit up, play games with me, do fun magic tricks. So that kind of kept me going, so that I didn't like slop down and feel blue, basically.
Yeah, I absolutely relate to everything you're saying. We didn't have therapeutic clowns at the hospital at London I was in, but we had play leaders. I guess nowadays they would probably be called child life specialists. And yeah, my person was called Bonamy. So yeah, I remember her very well as well. Okay, so Antoine, can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about throughout your journey of being a participatory researcher, and why are you interested in doing research with youth like Jacob?
When I was starting medical training, I started becoming a volunteer in a summer camp for kids with cancer and their families with my mom. And my mom is a great mom. She knows how to care, listen. What I've learned there is that I knew very little. You know, I was learning a lot in medical school about diseases and treatment, but I've learned that I didn't know much about how to cope in daily life, that the people I was meeting were actually the caregivers who were there 24/7 all day long to care for themselves as patients, but also as family members. And how do you care when there is nothing else to offer medically? And I was really touched to see the mutual support that was happening between children and also between parents. And so for me, it felt like a discovery of all the care that was happening underwater, the invisible care, like the invisible piece of the iceberg. And that got me really interested in how we can work together and care together.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think from my perspective, at least as somebody who now works professionally in patient engagement, there's a lot of researchers who want to work with people with lived experience. And there's definitely a lot of people with lived experience who want to get involved in research. But sometimes connecting is kind of difficult. So how did you two connect and how did you get to know each other?
I'm not really that kind of person who has trouble connecting. So as soon as if I find a similar interest with someone, it starts that spark. So when Antoine told me that he was interested in learning about how it is on the other side of someone with lived experience, I thought that it works because we can feed each other information. I can give him information on what it's like to have the experience lived, and he can give me information on the research side and what they're working towards.
For me, that was a bit more scary. So the first time we met was on Zoom, and I was really struggling to find what was our common interest and how we could connect together. And at one point, we got the idea of coming to Toronto together, and you know, Jacob's eyes lit up and said, "Oh, that sounds fun." And what really struck me is that I was really scared of coming here and, you know, giving a talk. And this is very stressful for me. And he was very cool about it. Said, "No, Antoine, it's going to be fine. You know, I've given tons of these talks before and it's going to be easy." So we kind of became travel buddies. So, yeah, he's reassuring me.
So this is kind of really the first time, is this the first time that you have met?
Yeah, it's the first time
Oh,
we
wow,
met
okay.
in person was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you already seem like very comfortable with each other. They're obviously two very confident people,
Yeah.
but like, you know, how much have you talked till now? Like, how do you actually strike up this rapport and like form a good like working relationship?
Sir?
Well, we've talked several times over Zoom, and just getting to know one another. I think it was really more interesting when we started exploring who we are as people, you know, rather than talking about the job and all of that. Like yesterday, I was asking Jacobs about his passion, and one of his passion is marine wildlife. And I have a passion for scuba diving, and it really hit it between the both of us. We really got excited, and so it's the relationship for me at the human level that really provides the foundation. And then working together and going for a talk, you know, we were walking on the sidewalk this morning and asking him, what do you want to say to these people? And so work becomes really easy once you have that relationship.
Fantastic, thank you. So I understand that you've just started working together, but can you tell me a little bit more about, you know, do you have any specific projects in mind? Is this sort of an ongoing thing where you and Jacob consult with regards to your future work? Like, how is it gonna, what's it gonna look like for the next 6 years? No, 6 months, that's what I meant, 6 months to 12 months.
So we've been starting to this idea of doing research with youths for a year now. And since the beginning, we knew that we wanted to work with teenagers and young people with lived experience. But at the beginning, it was just adults around the table. So we knew that we could have ideas and plans, but we needed to keep those open and flexible. And one of the first items on the agenda was how to start a conversation with youths. And where are the youths? And, you know, Cat Stevens has this song, "Where Do the Children Play?" And it became sort of the inspiration, not trying to bring youths to the research center, but to move the researchers outside of the research center. We got an invitation to go to a winter weekend camp and participate as part of the animation crowd. And so we started cooking potatoes outside and playing games, skating and all that. And through that weekend, we really established the relationship, rediscovered what a teenager is in 2023. And we had a little workshop where we asked people to write letters for teenagers in 100 years about their hopes and wishes. And for us, that was the cue to try to get to teenagers' hopes and dreams to guide research. And so it was a game. We played together in a way, and we sang song together. And I remember a 14-year-old woman at the end of the weekend pulling down the window of the bus saying, "Antoine, are you coming back next time?" And I thought, okay, this is a success. We've established connection, and we're part of the crew now.
Fantastic. And so I want to ask Jacob. So Jacob, why is it important for you to be involved in research, to be involved in what's going on, and to talk at an event like this?
I believe it's important to me because I've experienced what it's like to be on the lived experience. So I feel like being on the research side would help benefit more, because then I can also give the researchers feedback on what I've been through. So it kind of helps them get an understanding of what else they can do and what they need to focus on when it comes to research.
Fantastic, thank you. And I want to actually kind of build on that a little bit. So I'm involved in a lot of research projects as a childhood cancer survivor. And for me, that often involves reliving things that happened to me. And it also involves learning about a lot of things that might happen to me in the future. Now we know more about what happens to people like me and you as a result of our treatments, as a result of our cancers in the future. Do you ever have any kind of emotional problem like dealing with that? Because I know sometimes I feel like I'm pretty good at dealing with that, and then I'll read something and I'll be like, okay, I'm done for a week, I need to be out of this. So do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, that definitely happens to me. It just one day I'll be like all happy, and then the next day I'll be looking at something, or let's say a Facebook memory of how sick I was, and then all of a sudden I'm in my room with my door shut, just lost.
Yeah. And so how do you strike a balance between wanting to be involved in research and involved in this community, but also like looking after yourself and your mental health?
On my side, I feel like helping in research would also improve my mental health, because then I feel like I'm giving back, and I'm helping people. I'm helping with research that can potentially help and prevent more childhood cancer.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Can I share, Vicky, a
Yeah,
couple
sure.
of
Please
thoughts?
go ahead.
Like Jacob and I, we haven't known each other for a long time, but I've been starting to take Jacob's quotes in my book because he's a wise man. So at one point when we were talking about coming to Toronto, you said something, and I don't know if I can quote you in public, where you said, there's this treasure in me. I've been putting knowledge in it for 15 years. And now it looks as if you found the key to open that treasure, and I can share it with others now. And I thought that was a very powerful image. And when we talked also about the idea of Jacob coming here and report to other youths living with cancer about what's happening in cancer research in Canada, your reaction about why you were interested in doing this was that for you, research, it provides a sense of hope to see what is coming forward, that, things may have been difficult for you, but for the other youths coming forward, it may be easier. And I thought that was a really cool and inspiring motivation to come here.
You want to
You're
respond
cool,
to any of
man.
that, Jacob?
Yeah, when I was thinking about coming here, it struck me that I'm not just a cancer survivor in this sense. I'm now a researcher, so now I can put my knowledge towards helping and hopefully advancing the research in pediatric cancer in children. And for me, I don't know about others, but for me, knowing that research is advancing gives me a sense of comfort. So if something ever comes back, like I get cancer comes back, they know what to do, and they can easily start right away as back when I first got diagnosed, some of the treatments, they weren't really sure what treatment was right. So it was a sense of like confusion, mystery, because they didn't know what was going to happen.
Thank you. So, Antoine, I want to ask you a question, and it kind of goes back to something that I said earlier, which is I think there is a growing understanding of the importance of engaging, people like Jacob in research. But my perspective is that although a lot of people are willing, they don't really know how to kind of get started, how to form these relationships. Like, you're obviously somebody who does this kind of work a lot. Why is it so important to you to put this much time and effort, and I'm assuming a very busy life and busy schedule, into actually doing this work and to doing it very well?
I don't know. For me, that's what brings meaning and joy to my research. When we connect and it feels like the purpose is clear. I mean, I draw a lot of inspiration and motivation from hearing what this means for Jacob, and so yeah, for me, it's meaningless if we do this without people. And yes, it does take a little bit of time, but it's you can run quickly into a wall, or you can walk slowly towards a meaningful destination. And I've been struck so many times about the things I thought as a physician were important and the things that were actually important to patients. When I was doing my PhD topic was on setting priorities with patients. And we did this. It was a randomized controlled trial, real research. And so we had groups of patients on one side and professionals on the other side saying, what should we improve in healthcare? And the difference was huge. And when we presented the results to my colleagues, it was dead silence in the room. And the first person who stood up was a physician in a small community of 3,000 people. That means a third of the population were her own patients. And she said, we're out in the left field. Our priorities have nothing to do with the patients and community members in my community. So we need to go back, sit down with them and listen.
Thank you. So I'd love to know, you haven't been working together long. It's a few months since you first started talking. I want to ask Jacob first. How has it been so far? Has anything been surprising or unexpected?
So far it's been great. I enjoy working with the team. Nothing really surprised me yet, but I'm sure there will be surprises. And I mean that in a good way. But the team is great, and I'm sure in the future we're going to do great things together.
That's brilliant. Thank you. The team is great. I have also been privileged to be to go to some meetings. The only thing for me personally, which just makes me feel bad, is that I do not speak French, and and sometimes the meeting proceeds in French, and so I'm getting very good at the instant Google Translate, and I'm learning as I go along. So it's a learning experience on many levels.
Hopefully, we have Jacob to translate.
Yes, Jacob has many talents, including that. So Antoine, same question to you. Like, how has it been working together so far? Has anything surprised you or unexpected? Or, has Jacob ever said anything where you go, okay, I'm thinking about the whole world differently now?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like he says a lot of
Yes.
things like that, even now.
Yes. I've had a couple of those life-changing moments in this project. So the first time is when I met Sarah's daughter, Helena, who's at the origin of this whole of ACCESS. So we had a meeting on a Monday night, a Zoom meeting, when we talked about her story and why it was so difficult for youths to engage in research, because oftentimes she would get told, "What do you know? You're just a kid." And I was so touched by the end of the meeting about the wisdom of this young woman and what she had achieved when she was 12-year-old. And when I hung up, I went to kiss my own teenager goodnight, who is 12-year-old. And I thought, I don't see fully everything that he's capable of. I still look at him as a little child. I don't see all the treasure that he holds in him. So that has been life-changing. It has changed my outlook into the capacities and of younger people. And the same thing happened with Jacob yesterday. Jacob was interviewing Christine. So in a way, Christine was supposed to be providing the information and Jacob listening. And I was observing. And at one point, the interview pivoted and it became Jacob teaching to Christine about what he thought was really important that we do research about. And he said, well, I think it's very important that the caregivers, the professionals, the physicians, they talk directly to the patients because they can understand. Because when I was 5-year-old, I understood that I had cancer and I wanted to know more. And for me, that also re-questioned the ability of children to understand, to participate, to engage.
Would you like to add anything there, Jacob? Or maybe some snippets from your interview with Christine?
So going back on what Antoine was just saying, I truly believe that when it comes to being diagnosed, I feel it's important that the doctor talks to the patient like they're an adult. Even if they're younger and they might not understand, it's still important to talk to them like they're there and they're present at the moment. Because if you're talking to the parents, it's like the child is not there. So it gives them a sense of fear, in my opinion. Whereas if you talk to them directly, even if the parents are there, it gives them that sense of like, okay, he's talking to me, like that means something.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And maybe it won't surprise those of you who know me, but when I was on treatment, I didn't give my doctors a choice, but to answer my questions. So apparently my favorite one was, why is doxorubicin red? And they were just like, because it is. And I'm like, no, but why is it red? And why are platelets orange? And all of these questions, which they were like, wow, I don't have time for this, but I will try and find out. And this was, when the internet was really in its infancy as well. So I can only imagine the stress I put them through. Okay, so we just have a couple of questions left, and then we'd love to ask the audience if they have any questions. But I would love to know, Jacob, you first. What have you learned from your experience of working with Antoine so far that could be helpful for other researchers or youth that want to work together? Any tips of how to make those connections, how to make it meaningful, anything at all that you want to tell the audience here?
Well, the first thing that I would say that helped us connect was being, like Antoine said, the human connections first. Before we connected on our goals with the team, it's important to connect on a human level first. So find that common interest that you can start talking to develop the friendship or the companionship before you talk about the research. So it's not awkward.
Right. So it's less transactional,
Yeah.
and more of an actual sustainable thing.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And Antoine, same question for you. For the others in the audience who are interested in, really involving people with lived experience in a meaningful way, what's your top tips for them, I guess?
So the top tips that I've learned about working with youths, the top two keys I found is playing and eating. So games were amazing for us when we got to our first weekend camp. We played these little kluk coin coin. We say
paper things, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first ways we got to connect with one another, asking silly questions, and the food in any of our of our projects, the food is important. So cooking the potatoes outside with fire was a big moment in our experience. Michelle has been doing a lot of work establishing relationships with indigenous nations for part of our project, and his plan was to take a week of vacation and cook Breton crepe every day for community members. And that's how he got to be known. And on day 4, the chief came over to try to taste the Breton crepe. And they had 4 minutes to talk about the project. And it started the collaboration and the relationship. So food and play be my top tips.
Absolutely. And I was here at ACCESS for 5 years, and I remember the way that they got people to come to talks was pizza. So I think it works, you know, across the board. Okay, thank you both so much. So we actually have sort of 5-10 minutes for audience questions now. So I'd love to ask the audience if they have any questions for our pair here. One over there at the back. Sorry, blue jacket.
Yes. I'm curious, coming from outside the pediatric oncology community gives you a view of this community that's different and important. And this is a question for you and anyone in the room. What can we teach other people? Because I think we don't think of ourselves as leaders often enough. So what is it that we can teach everyone else?
For those who don't really understand what the pediatric cancer is about, I think it's important to first tell the story of what you've gone through, so then they kind of get a sense of a basis of what pediatric cancer is. And telling the story also generalizes, gives them kind of a vision of what the person has been through and what it would feel like. So coming to that, it would make you think of like, oh, what can I do to help this and prevent it?
Absolutely.
So when we were walking on the sidewalk and I was asking Jacob about important messages, he told me one that I thought was very important is don't be afraid to ask. So there is a lot of discomfort about, well, can I ask you about your own illness, your own journey, what happened with your eye, with all of this, you know, and it was really nice for me that you reflected that it doesn't hurt to have the question. I can tell you I'm not comfortable to answer, but don't be afraid to ask, for me, is an important teaching point that I got from Jacob.
And I guess I'll just add one of those things as well. When we were preparing for this interview, I said to Jacob, are there any questions that you don't want to answer? Is there anything that you would be uncomfortable with? And he said, nope, absolutely nothing. And I think one of the things about being a advocate, I guess you would call both of us, is that we accept sometimes it's going to be hard, and we accept sometimes it's going to maybe, you know, cause us discomfort. I've had very frank conversations with people about survivorship and about what happens to people in the, you know, after childhood cancer. And I have gone away thinking, ugh, I don't want to think about my risk of breast cancer and cardiovascular disease and all sorts of things that could happen to me. But many of us also accept that that discomfort is a part of communicating and a part of pushing for change. So I think that's an important thing to point out.
Can I add something? There's two complement to this. The first one is that ethics should not come in the way, but it needs to go beyond what we're used to. Okay, so what I mean here is that sometimes we're afraid to start the conversation early on because we don't yet have ethical approval. So talking to somebody in real life doesn't require approval from a research ethics board. You know, becoming friends or colleagues, you know, it's like talking to Adrian, starting, you know, a project together. It doesn't require ethics approval. Okay, so don't take this as a barrier. At the same time, you need to be mindful of unintended harms that can happen while we are working together. This means a special attention to care for one another as research team members or diving buddies. people can get hurt in the travel. And we need to take care of what things to be very benign things that we're discussing around the table, but it is very personal. And so there needs to be some spaces that we and people around the table that are in position to listen and be sensitive to these issues.
Exactly. And in my own experience of doing patient engagement and being a patient on several tables, I have never felt harmed by anybody asking me about my experience. The things that I have found more frustrating and occasionally harmful are when people sit me in a room and then they don't let me do anything or say anything. So there are many ways to do patient engagement really badly. And I would not say I have ever had a negative experience by somebody asking me a difficult question. I've had negative experiences by people putting me there for tick box purposes and then not letting me do anything. So, okay, any further questions? I think we have time for one or two more. At the back, David.
Thanks. First, a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for your openness, Antoine, and your insights, Jacob. Really quite something. And I would echo the sort of sense of you being a wise person, Jacob. That's an appropriate song. My question is actually more about when, in terms of engaging youth and young people, in terms of at what point in somebody's journey do you think it makes sense to sort of to engage, whether that's after treatment, during, or after a period of time. We're just trying to think about how to foster and nurture that engagement.
Well, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I would say there are many different ways to dance together, and you need to have different styles with different people, different age, different stages, and really that's why you need to get to know one another, because the way you're going to interact is going to be influenced by that also, and also by your own personality. You know, we don't build relationships, all of us, in the same way. And not everybody on the research team may be the best person equipped to build that relationship. So that's also because the reason why it is a team sport. It's been helpful also for us to work with more experienced people. I call them bridgers, people who are able to understand the world of research and understand the world of patients, and who can help us navigate and understand each other between these two worlds. So that can be people like Jacob and Vicky, who have experience in both worlds. We have the chance to have on our research team a very experienced patient partner, you know, who's co-director. She's not a kid with cancer, but she has a lot of experience in patient engagement in research, and she can act as a mentor and recognize when we recruited Jacob, we sent out the job application, you know, and 20 people applied and we selected 2. But on our recruitment team was an experienced patient partner who could recognize when she saw Jacob, she said, okay, he has all the skills we need to work as a partner on the team. I couldn't see that if just looking as a researcher. So working with people who have experiences is helpful to find the right way to dance.
Jacob, did you want to add anything?
I totally agree with Antoine is saying. And when it comes to the relationship building, at what stage, there's different stages that work better for some people. Like if, let's say someone's just diagnosed with cancer, for them, that might be the right stage to start. But for someone else, the stage might be during their treatment, like in the middle of their, like long after their diagnosis might be the right stage, because they're not as, their brain isn't filled with as much information as when they first got diagnosed.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, so I think maybe we have time for one question. Adrian?
So you have most of ACCESS in the room with you, Jacob, and we're all paying very close attention. Do you have a message for us? Something that you want us to take away from this talk today?
Well, the message I always say to myself when it comes to childhood cancer is that it doesn't matter whether the kid is young, old, middle, like mid-teens. They're going through the same feeling. They could be my age, they could be 5. The mental image they're getting is the same. So no matter what situation they're in, the support is always accepted and helped.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jacob. And thank you, Antoine. And thank you for all your questions. So Jacob and Antoine are going to be here all of the rest of the day. And I think maybe tomorrow morning a little bit as well. So please do come and talk to them and have good conversations about engagement in research. And I want to thank you all for your attention this morning. And a round of applause, please, for our panelists.